Dear students of class 9A, 9B, in this lesson, which already I have started teaching, the Election Commission and the elections, some points are left to be taught. Today I am teaching. First point, manifesto. What is manifesto? What do you know? What do you know about manifesto? You know, before election, political parties usually go to the people or in front of the people and deliver their speeches. While deliberating speeches, they assure the people that if they are elected by them, they would fulfill each and every promise they make before the people. And as soon as they come to power, they realize all the promises, and in order to get the people satisfied, they try to solve all the problems. They try to fulfill all the expectations of the people, all the promises they make before them. They always try to fulfill it for nothing but the satisfaction of the people, so that after 5 years later they must be elected by the people. So this is nothing but a system by which they promise, and on being elected they fulfill their expectation, people's expectation and promises. This system is known as manifesto. This is known as manifesto. And this manifesto is nothing, it is done through campaigning of the political parties. That's why in short term it is known as manifesto campaigning. Manifesto campaigning. This is called manifesto. This is called manifesto. Now campaigning stops. The manifesto of the political parties and manifesto campaigning stops before 48 hours. Before 48 hours. 48 hours. Manifesto stops 48 hours before. 48 hours before polling time. That means 48 hours before polling time, manifesto or campaigning stops. Campaigning of the political party stops 48 hours before election, 48 hours before polling time. So this is known as manifesto of the political parties, political leaders. What is the meaning of manifesto? Manifesto is a process through which manifesto is a process of promising before the people, by encouraging them so that they must vote for that particular party or particular candidate. Political parties and their candidates usually go in front of the people, and while deliberating speeches, they give some assurances for the people. They make some promises before the people. And whenever they are elected, they always try to get the people satisfied, so that after 5 years, next terms, they must be re-elected by them. So this act of assurance and this, this kind of giving promises for the people, this system is known as manifesto. Manifesto is nothing but a technique, a strategy of the political parties. Before election, they adapt it. But campaigning, manifesto campaigning stops 48 hours before polling time. 48 hours before polling time, manifesto campaigning stops. Voters, the next point, election campaign. Voters go to the polling booths. Before election, voters go to the voters' houses and they request them to cast votes in favor of his political symbol so that he must be elected and can work for the people's development, for the people's growth, for the people's development and growth. And a number of political parties and candidates follow the same technique, same method. They go to the houses, they go to the candidates separately in order to convince them, in order to motivate them before election. And from election commission's end, one work is very important, that is rectifying of voters list. Voters lists are rectified duly before the time or before the period the process of rectification is done. So earlier, during when the ballot paper system was there was no system of producing voters identity card in the polling booth. The voters were allowed to cast their votes as per their as per the informations mentioned in the voter list, as per the information mentioned in their booklets. They compared with their name to their lists, and then they were allowed to cast their votes during that process. But at the end of that process of taking votes through ballot papers or through postal ballots or through the system without having any voter's ID card, a new system was introduced by Election Commission in order to remove all kinds of irregularities, because many proxy voters used to come and cast proxy votes in order to get someone else win the election. And by this way, so many candidates misuse their powers and ultimately forcefully by applying treachery and by applying dishonesty, the whole policy of dishonesty. That's why, in order to remove this kind of irregularities, the Election Commission, on behalf of the Election Commission, Chief Election Commissioner T.N. Session, introduced voters' identity card. And now, at the same time, one machine also is introduced for the voters, EVM machine. The voters no need to fold the ballot paper and no need to fold the paper and no need to throw into the ballot boxes. But one machine is produced, one machine is installed there in the booth, and the names are written as per the serial number. The names along with their voter symbol are mentioned on the EVM machine, and some buttons also are there to the right side, and as per the choice of the names and candidates or their party symbols, voters choose their candidate and they switch on the button and cast their votes and left the voting center. But this system, after the introduction of this system, there is no irregularity found, and both the voters become pleased with the system. There is no possibility of bringing any allegations against anyone else. That's why nowadays elections are held elections are held very smoothly, and free and fair election also is conducted. And conducting free and fair election becomes possible only because of the introduction of EVM machine and introduction of voters' identity cards for the voters. Next point, active participation of the people. Since there was a system of providing voters' identity card and EVM machine and rectification of voters list, each and every voter can go to their respective booths to cast their votes. So by the active participation of the people, free and fair election is possible in our country nowadays. And next point, pressures exerted by the ruling parties forces media to be biased. This point is very important nowadays and very relevant point, because nowadays some ruling parties still now some ruling parties try to try to win over the media, and then medias are forcefully utilized by some political parties, and with the help of but there is no scope to stop this kind of act of misery. But still, election commission becomes very much conscious of this kind of work practiced by some political parties before election. They always try to make pressure on the media. Now, which party takes these liberties? Only the ruling parties. The ruling parties ruling party can take liberties. Since they are ruling party, their police department is with them, and other officers also are with them, and by way of continuing their rule for 5 years, they always try to be of the same government for 5 years more. That's why they always try to win over the media. That's why Election Commission's first and foremost duty is to keep watch over the activities of the political parties, especially ruling political parties, ruling political parties and their leaders. And that's why political leaders, so that this kind of act of misery they are unable to practice before election. Up to this, my dear students, thank you.